News every 15 minutes, weather every 10, and sports twice an hour.
Newstalk, KGVO, AM 1290 and 101.5 FM.
You're listening to Montana Morning with Peter Christian.
Montana's campaign contribution limits ruled unconstitutional. Good morning, everyone. It's Montana Morning for Wednesday, May 18th, 2016. Right now, the sky is partly cloudy. We have 48 degrees in Missoula. Our newscast this morning, sponsored by Dig It Excavating, bringing 30 years of excavation excellence to every job. For all your excavation needs, call 214-4292. U.S. District Judge Charles Lovell has struck down Montana's campaign spending limits as being a violation of the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Missoula attorney Quentin Rhodes explains the decision.
The court ruled that the contribution limits that have been set by the state of Montana are unconstitutional and they interfere with people's political and First Amendment rights, and therefore struck them down and held them to be unenforceable.
Following the U.S. District Court decision that struck down Montana's 1994 campaign contribution limits, Commissioner of Political Practices Jonathan Model reinstituted the limits that were in place pre-1994.
Those limits stand for individuals and political committees other than political parties. There's a limit of 1,990 to the governor, lieutenant governor, 990 to the other statewide offices, 530 to district court judge, PSC, state senate, and all other offices, including the House, $330.
He said the most troubling aspect of the decision was that there would be no limits on how much political parties could contribute, because the current limits are greater than those that were placed in 1994.
The commissioner's office doesn't have authority to reinstate a pre-existing limit for political party contributions because that pre-existing limit is less than the one that the court struck. What that basically means is that there are no limits on what political parties can give candidates, and that is the most troublesome part of this order.
Model says the state of Montana will definitely appeal Lovell's decision to the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. A man has been sentenced to prison in Montana after police say he posted child pornography on social media. The Missoula newspaper reports Christopher Cooper was arrested in an undercover law enforcement sex sting back in 2013 after traveling to Missoula with plans to meet a 12-year-old girl for sex. He received a fully suspended 25-year sentence. However, he was arrested in April of last year, just a month later, for posting child pornography on multiple Twitter accounts. Cooper pleaded guilty in January to violating the terms of his probation and 8 new felony charges. He's been sentenced to 30 years in the Montana State Prison with 15 years suspended. The judge also changed his sentence from the previous case to 25 years in prison with 10 years suspended. Ravalli County officials have been searching for more than a year for former county treasurer Valerie Stamey. She disappeared back in 2014 while deputies were attempting to bring her a court summons. According to Ravalli County Attorney Bill Fulbright, Stamey has now been served.
The Ravalli County Sheriff's Office investigation continued on, trying to locate her. We had a number of misses, so to speak, in trying to find a valid residence. They came up with enough information, and then the investigator in my office did some follow-up, and the combination led to locating the residence she and her husband are living in South Carolina.
The summons was served by a private investigator who was called in after law enforcement in South Carolina weren't able to hand-deliver the papers to Stamey. Fulbright says the charges involve costs accrued by the county during Stamey's time in office. Included in the summons is a $29,000 charge for lack of performance.
So this is a lawsuit that the county filed against Ms. Stamey back in 2014 seeking recovery of the money spent auditing the books and so forth at the time that ultimately led up to her termination, as well as the statutory penalties that are available under Montana law.
Ravalli County Sheriff Chris Hoffman says Stamey was found after a tip was called in and after Stamey herself filed a lawsuit against the Bitterroot Star newspaper, citing a South Carolina residence. Stamey has 21 days to respond after receiving the summons. Fulbright expects her to hear from her by the end of the month. An attorney for an American Indian group says U.S. officials will need more money from Congress to cover the costs of an initiative to return land on reservations to tribal ownership. John Dossett with the National Congress of American Indians says the U.S. Interior Department is working well, but he says the $1.9 billion put into it under a 2009 legal settlement will not be enough to get the work done. The program consolidates individual parcels of land with multiple owners and turns the property over to tribes to be put into beneficial use. It expires in 2022. Interior officials yesterday added 63 reservations in 16 states to the initiative, bringing the total number involved to 105. 13 new satellite voting locations will be opening across Montana for this year's elections, according to Montana Secretary of State Linda McCullough.
Well, we have a total of locations of 13, and that's on 9 counties across 6 tribal nations. So we're really pleased that the county election administrators and the tribal nations will work together and come up with something suitable to all of them.
7 reservations will be setting up the satellite voting locations. There are even 2 planned for Missoula County.
It's almost an hour drive from Missoula to Sealy Lake, so they wanted to open up one to accommodate the folks up at Sealy Lake, and then one at Frenchtown, because part of the Flathead Reservation comes into Missoula County, but there's no place to locate an office there, so they located it in Frenchtown.
For all the locations except for Sealy Lake, tribes have provided an accessible location with internet connection, while the counties are providing the personnel needed to run them. Emotions ran high at a showdown in Casper, Wyoming yesterday between environmentalists and the mining industry over possibly increasing federal fees to mine coal. A federal coal lease moratorium has added uncertainty to an industry struggling with bankruptcies, layoffs, and mine closures. Any changes will have a big effect on a future U.S. coal industry centered in Wyoming, and of course, that's also in Montana. The U.S. Bureau of Land Management held the first of 6 hearings on coal leasing reform yesterday. Coal mining executive Richard Ravey dismisses the process as a sham. Wyoming Education Superintendent Jillian Ballow said she's working to remove liberal rhetoric about climate change from science education. Others, including Bob Laresh with the Powder River Basin Resource Council, say changes to make sure the government gets a fair return on coal reserves are long overdue. And 2 new members of the Missoula County Sheriff's Office arrived over the weekend, but they weren't in uniform. They're the county's newest canine officers, German Shepherds Loki and Sancho. Spokesperson Brenda Bassett said the dogs and their handlers have a lot more training ahead.
It's important to remember these dogs are still really young dogs. They're just a little over a year old, so they'll be perfecting the art of patrolling and doing those things. It takes about 2 years to get a dog to where they're really ready to go and on point.
Bassett said the sheriff's office is modifying a patrol vehicle to accommodate the canines.
They're working on getting the vehicles that they'll be patrolling in finished up. Pretty interesting. They'll be able to, if the car hits a certain temperature inside, the car will turn on and the fans will start going, and an officer will be sent a notification.
Bassett said 2 deputies were chosen from a number who volunteered to partner with the dogs, Ross Jessup and Dustin Uriarte, and they should begin their duties in a few weeks. Newstalk Time 6:13.
Newstalk, KGVO.
Missoula's official weather station.
Partly cloudy skies today with our high temperatures in the mid-70s. There will be an isolated threat of a thunderstorm this afternoon, but showers and thunderstorms are expected tonight into early Thursday, with rain sticking around Thursday through the weekend. I'm meteorologist Brooke Foster, KECI 13.